We're going to start reading from the same booklet that we had used before that uh, we had talked about the watershed in Vermilion. So now we're going to read about non-native or invasive plants of our changing landscape. One might think, apart from the crops that dominate the rural landscape of Vermilion River watershed, the vegetation is comprised of native plants from the first settlers encountered. In fact, more than half of the wild species in some of our watershed's most common plant communities weren't growing anywhere in North America as recently as 400 years ago. Among the first non-native plants to reach the East Coast was with European assistance were herbs like lamb's quarters in the bottom right, velvet leaf, top right, several knotweeds, and foxtail grass. So troublesome were these garden opportunists to the original farmers of eastern North America that they soon became known as the white man's curse. What with this American Indian frustration really signaled was a process in the New World that continues to transform not only the natural history of north central Ohio, but that of our entire planet. We witness the consequences of this ongoing invasion every time we mow our lawns, tend our gardens, or take summer rides through the countryside. As more time passed, additional plants that were already adapted to northern Ohio's climate and soils arrived from Asia and Europe. Weedy species like gill over the ground, right, the common white daisy, next page, top left, and chicory. There we go. There's the velvet leaf, Japanese knotweed. This is our lamb's quarter and the gill over the ground. Chicory, which is in the bottom page left, that's right here, that's chicory. Chicory have totally changed the character of our meadows. Common reed on the left, reed canary grass, and the notorious purple leastryce, bottom right, represent three of their especially aggressive wetland counterparts. Imported, low-growing herbs, especially well-suited for lawns and along pathways, include several plantains, a large number of speedwells, and the ubiquitous dandelion. Most threatening to our local forests of these non-natives are the so-called woody invasives. Members of this diverse collection of shrubs and small trees include multifloral rose, winged wahoo, and some Asian honeysuckles, all imported for use in planted landscapes. Immature woodlands are especially vulnerable to these. So if we go to the next page, there's the white daisy, there's the chicory we talked about, the purple loose stripe that they talked about. We'll continue to read. The non-crop plants that inhabit the Vermilion watershed but evolved in eastern North America and qualify as endemics or natives here. The rest of our local residents constitute non-natives or aliens. In effect, the plants that are considered naturalized owing to the fact that they are well established. They are permanent residents today, but they cannot be labeled legitimate natives. It should be noted, however, that even the native plants of northern Ohio, those that arrived without human assistance, have also done some traveling, and not that long ago on a geological timescale. All of our native plants have had to move around during the past 1.5 million years, or more precisely, have been forced to migrate by the expanding and receding glaciers discussed in the geology section of this book. As recently as 13,000 years ago, following the meltback of the most recent glaciers, no vegetation of any kind was present in the area that became our watershed. So in this respect, everything botanical in our midst today is a colonist of some sort. The ongoing mixing of native and non-native species that we are witnessing in the watershed is an underappreciated dimension of the globalization phenomena that receives so much publicity lately. Human economies and cultures that were less well connected in the past have made their mark on our local vegetation as intercontinental trade and travel have become more frequent. And it isn't just plants that are involved. For example, accidental importations of pathogens like the Dutch elm disease fungus and predators like the emerald ash borer, top right, have displaced or are now eliminating important trees from our forest. More likely than not, many of the gaps that are more trees die will be filled by the invasive shrubs that already rank among our region's most aggressive non-natives. For example, the white ash, one native species that has become more common in recent decades, is almost certain to be decimated by the emerald ash borer. Another pest that is yet to arrive, the Asian longhorn beetle, with its broader diet, also threatens to purge our forests of many more species, including exceptionally valuable ones like the sugar maple. The invasive potential of plant species varies just as plant communities vary in their vulnerabilities to invasions by non-natives. Crop fields, roadsides, and waste areas, the watershed's most disturbed habitats, are most affected by non-native vegetation. Still, these same plants also occur under more natural conditions along stream channels, for example, on sandbars and low banks subject to frequent networking by floodwaters. Next page. Invaders of these sites are fast-growing, short-lived herbs, including these crop contaminants that so perplexed Ohio's original human inhabitants. The short-cycled weeds of this region can be divided into types according to the seasons in which they occur. Winter annuals, the smaller of the two sublets, include the dead needle, annual bluegrass, and the common chickweed. Like the rest of their kind, these three species, all non-natives, germinate as soil begins to cool down in late summer. Juveniles pass the winter in a dormant stage, after which spring warmth triggers rapid maturation and seed production before summer begins. Summer annuals whose lives start and end in the same growing season are the largest subset. Ones with foreign origins include rough pigweed, next page, bottom left, flower of an hour, bottom right, and Jimson weed, next page, top left. It's the summer annuals that oblique local farmers to rely so heavily on chemical herbicides. Likewise, the expense incurred to control them provides the incentive to plant genetically engineered crops such as the Roundup Ready soybeans that have almost entirely replaced older varieties in our local fields. Least affected in our watershed by plant invasions are its mature forests. While it's true that fewer tree species comprise the woodlands today than in the past, the more species-rich communities of herbs under the trees remain pretty much as they have been for thousands of years. The deep, fertile soils at Fowler Woods, adjacent to the Vermilion River at the Lorain County Metro Park properties at Chance Creek and Swift Hollows, for example, still support stunning displays of wildfire flowers that belong to categories known as spring ephrons, all of them, mayapple, our three species is trillium, the two trout lilies, and Virginia bluebells, to name just a few as natives. This is not to say that the spring ephrons are immune to invading non-natives. Being low to the ground and requiring strong light, the spring ephrons must compete with brief annual growth cycles before the tree's overhead leaf out. Consequently, they are unduly susceptible to competitors that cast shade earlier than the American beech, oaks, maples, and the other deciduous trees. Garlic mustard seriously threatens this community. It's down on the right. Spending its first year of life low to the ground as a short, inoffensive rosette, its rapid growth up to a full meter beginning as early as mid-April drastically changes its character. No trout lily, toothwort, or rue anemone anchored amidst a dense colony of mustard family member can conduct enough photosynthesis to recharge its perennial organs and reproduce. Garlic mustard also releases chemicals that inhibit the growth of nearby plants. It has quickly invaded woodlands across northern Ohio thanks to how easily its tiny seeds adhere to the hooves of white-tailed deer. Most of the forest invaders in northern Ohio are woody and rely on birds seeking edible fruits to disperse their digestive resistant seeds. The weedy herbs, including garlic mustard, mostly employ small, hard-coated seeds that ripen in dry fruit. They are less reliant on physical mobility to colonize newly disturbed habitats. Instead, the exceptionally long-lived seeds of these short-cycled species percolate into the soil where they can survive for decades, awaiting germination cues like exposure to light. Spade up just a small plot in a long-established lawn, and soon you will have a stand of these mostly non-native weeds. So what should we expect our green landscapes to look like in the decades ahead? Assuming that demand for firewood remains modest, many of the region's farm woodlands and floodplain forests should continue to mature despite the loss of increasing numbers of native trees. The fates of their herb communities will depend in large measure on the success of the understory invaders like garlic mustard. Finally, the earlier springs, drier summers, and more frequent severe storm events predicted by climate change models for the Great Lakes region could influence both outcomes. Here we go. Private individuals can do a number of things to help reduce the adverse impacts of non-native plants in the Vermilion watershed. Landscaping with natives is especially appropriate. If cultivators must be used, then avoid stock prone to naturalize, such as the periwinkle, privet, and Japanese barberry. Better options for increasing as the number of nurseries offering natives continues to grow. Persons who enjoy working outdoors can also help by eliminating non-natives like multiflora rose below and buckthorn bottom left on their properties. Several local organizations, most notably the Lorain County Metro Parks, sponsor public work sessions devoted to this task on their holdings. Donations for the purchase and conservation of natural areas by agencies like the Western Reserve Land Conservatory are another way to help ensure the future of generations can enjoy nature in our watershed as we have known it. There's the other plants right there. All right, now you can answer the questions that go along with this.